Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin tonight's chilling story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new horror tale. And I have a question for you. What city are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read your comments with great excitement, and I love seeing where everyone is watching from around the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin tonight's terrifying story. At 3:13 a.m., the brass key to room 313 slid under my dorm door, warm enough to fog the tile. I was sitting cross-legged on my bed with one sock on, my laptop open to a half-finished sociology paper, and my phone plugged into the wall beside me. Outside, the hallway of Mercer Hall was doing what old college dorms do after midnight, humming through pipes, settling in the cold, coughing up laughter from drunk freshmen 2 floors below. The key stopped halfway across the floor. It was old, not like the plastic key cards we use now. Brass, narrow-toothed, tied to a faded pink ribbon. Stamped into the round head were 3 numbers. 313. My room. Then my phone buzzed. Not loud, just one soft vibration against the wood of my desk. The message was from Lila. Put it back. That was the first time I understood that whatever had found me wasn't just lonely. I was 21 then, a transfer student at Westbridge College in northern Pennsylvania, working evenings at the library circulation desk and sleeping badly in a single room I'd only gotten because somebody else had dropped out in October. My name is Adrian Vale. I was studying criminal justice because it sounded practical and because my mother, before she died, used to say I noticed things other people missed. After she passed that summer, I noticed everything. The empty chair at breakfast. The way my father stopped using the hallway light. The smell of her vanilla hand lotion still trapped in the seatbelt of her car. By November, I was alone in a way that made me do embarrassing things like downloading dating apps at 1 in the morning and pretending I was just seeing what was out there. That's where I matched with Lila. Her profile said she was 22, lived near campus, and liked old horror movies, rain, and gas station coffee. Her pictures looked almost too perfect, but not filtered. Pale face, dark hair cut just under her chin, green sweater, small silver cross at her throat. In one photo, she was sitting on a dorm windowsill with wet glass behind her. The strange thing was how fast she responded. I matched with her at 3:12 a.m. At exactly 3:13, she wrote, "You're still awake." I laughed because I thought it was a line. I wrote back, "So are you." She didn't answer until the next night. 3:13 a.m. "You keep your shoes under the desk because the closet smells like wet cardboard." I sat up when I read that. It was true. The closet in room 313 had smelled damp since move-in, like old paper left in a basement. Maintenance had come once, sprayed something lemony around the vents, and told me the building was 90 years old. I typed, "Do we know each other?" "No." "Are you in Mercer?" "Not anymore." That should have been the end of it. A normal person would have unmatched, reported the account, maybe walked downstairs and asked the RA if someone was messing with him. But grief makes you tolerant of strange attention. It makes being watched feel close to being remembered. So I kept talking to her. For a week, she only texted at 3:13. Never 3:12. Never 3:14. If I messaged during the day, the messages stayed unread until the next night. She refused to send voice notes. She refused video calls. "My camera's broken," she wrote once. I joked, convenient. At 3:13 the next morning, she replied, "Your mother said that word when she was angry." I stared at the screen until it dimmed. No one at Westbridge knew much about my mother. I hadn't posted about her online. I hadn't even told my roommate from freshman year at my old college the small details, like how she'd say "convenient" in that flat voice whenever my father forgot something. I told myself Lila had found my old accounts, dug through comments, pieced together names. People did that. The internet turned strangers into detectives. But then the messages got more specific. "You still sleep facing the wall. Don't leave the window cracked. The radiator knocks 4 times before the room gets cold." That last one arrived on a Thursday night. I was reading it when the radiator beside my desk knocked 4 times. Then the room went cold enough that I could see my breath. The next morning, I took my phone to the dining hall and showed my RA, Jonah, a skinny senior who wore beanies indoors and smelled permanently of peppermint gum. He scrolled through the messages with his eyebrows pulled together. "Probably someone in the building," he said. "People are bored. She knows stuff about my mom. Did you use your real last name?" "Yeah. There you go." He tried to hand the phone back, but his thumb paused on Lila's profile photo, the one on the dorm windowsill. His face changed. "What?" He zoomed in, then locked the screen like he'd seen something private. "Nothing. Just don't meet anyone from an app alone. You know her?" "No." But he said it too fast. That night, before my shift at the library, I stopped by the front desk in Mercer. The woman working there was Mrs. Ortega, a tiny night clerk with silver hair pulled into a bun and a habit of labeling everything with blue masking tape. She had worked at Westbridge since before half the buildings had Wi-Fi. I asked if she'd ever heard of a student named Lila. She shook her head without looking up from her crossword. Then I showed her the picture. Her pencil stopped. The lobby vending machine hummed between us. "Where did you get that?" "Dating app." "No, that's her profile." Mrs. Ortega reached for the phone, then seemed to think better of touching it. "That girl is not named Lila." "What's her name?" She looked toward the staircase. "Not the elevator. The staircase. You should not be in 313. I almost smiled because it sounded too dramatic, like something from a campus ghost tour. "Why?" Mrs. Ortega folded her crossword in half with slow, careful fingers. "Some rooms keep a shape," she said, "even after people leave." Before I could ask what that meant, a group of students came in laughing with takeout bags and wet umbrellas. Mrs. Ortega slid my phone back to me. "Do not answer her tonight," she whispered. Of course I did. At 3:13, my phone lit up on my pillow. "She remembers you younger." I wrote, "Who does?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The room. Something tapped once inside my closet, not on the door. Inside it. I grabbed the little desk lamp and crossed the room. The closet handle was cold, but not just cold from the draft. It felt like metal pulled from ice water. I opened it. Nothing fell out. No girl. No prankster. Just my laundry basket, a winter coat, and the same wet cardboard smell. Then I saw the back wall. There were scratches in the paint near the floor. Thin vertical marks. Like someone had dragged keys down the plaster again and again. Most were old, painted over badly. One was fresh. I packed a bag that night and slept in Jonah's room on his futon. I told him someone had been in my closet. He didn't laugh. He didn't even ask for proof. In the morning, he took me to the campus archives in the basement of McCall Library. "I'm not supposed to talk about it," he said while we walked. "The school hates when people dig this stuff up." "What stuff?" He didn't answer until we were standing in front of an old microfilm reader that smelled like dust and warm plastic. He typed a date into the archive computer. October 17th, 10 years earlier. A student newspaper article filled the screen. Westbridge sophomore found dead in Mercer Hall. The photo under the headline was Lila. Same dark hair. Same silver cross. Same green sweater. Her real name was Elise Morin. 19. Criminal justice major. Found in room 313 at 3:13 a.m. after another student reported repeated knocking from inside the walls. The article said her death was ruled accidental. The details were vague. There was a mention of a power outage, a locked door, and a missing phone. My mouth went dry when I saw the last paragraph. The resident assistant on duty was listed as Marianne Vale. My mother. For a while, all I could hear was the machine's fan. Jonah stood beside me, quiet. "My mom went here," I said. "She never told me." He pointed at the screen. Maybe she had a reason. That was when my phone buzzed. It was 3:13 p.m. Not a.m. For the first time, Lila had broken her own rule. The message was a photo. It showed my dorm room from the inside. My bed. My desk. My open closet. On the floor, in the exact center of the room, sat the brass key with the pink ribbon. The caption said, "She kept it for me." Now you brought it back. I left the archive without saying anything and ran across campus in freezing rain. Mercer Hall looked ordinary from outside. Brick walls, yellow windows, bikes locked to the railings, somebody's music thumping faintly from the second floor. My room was locked. Inside, everything was where I'd left it, except my mother's old keychain was on my desk. I hadn't thought about it in weeks. It was one of the few things I'd taken from her dresser after the funeral. A small ring with a grocery store loyalty tag, a mailbox key from our old house, and a brass key she always claimed opened nothing anymore. The pink ribbon tied to it was faded nearly white. I touched it, and a memory surfaced so hard I had to sit down. I was 8 years old, sick with a fever, sleeping in my mother's bed while she sat beside me. I remembered waking up because she was crying in the dark. She had something in her hand, a little brass key. She kept whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were still in there." Back then, I thought she was dreaming. That night I didn't wait for 3:13. I took the key, my laptop, my charger, and shoved everything important into my backpack. I was going to stay off campus, maybe at the bus station if I had to. I didn't care how stupid it sounded. But when I opened my door, the hallway was wrong. The fluorescent lights were off, replaced by dim amber emergency bulbs. The walls looked narrower. The whiteboard on the opposite door was gone. In its place hung a paper sign yellowed with age. Quiet hours begin at 10 p.m. From somewhere down the hall came a girl's soft crying. My phone buzzed. 3:13 a.m. You always leave before listening. I turned around. My room had changed too. The posters were gone. My laptop was gone. The air smelled of burned hair and rainwater. On the bed was a green sweater folded neatly at the foot. The closet door was open. Inside, where the back wall should have been, there was a narrow black space. A phone rang from inside it. Not my ringtone. An old, tinny melody. I should have run. I know that. But my mother's name was in that article. My mother had carried that key for 10 years. And whatever had happened in that room had followed her all the way into my childhood. So I stepped into the closet. The black space wasn't deep. It only looked that way. My hand hit plaster almost immediately, but the wall was soft in one place. I dug at it with the brass key until paint flaked under my nails. Something came loose. A phone. Old. Pink case. Cracked screen. Dead battery swelling the back plate. It lit up in my hand. One message sat open. Not from me. From Marianne Vale, October 17th, 10 years earlier. Elise, stay in your room. Don't answer if she knocks. I'm getting help. Below it was an unsent reply. She's already inside. The closet door slammed behind me. On the dead phone, a new message appeared. I'm not trying to meet you. I'm trying to come back through you. The room breathed. That's the only way I can describe it. The walls pushed outward, then in. The radiator hissed. My own phone on the desk began flashing through photos I had never taken. My sleeping face, my hand on the key, my mother at 19 standing in the Mercer hallway with a stain on her sleeve. Then the mirror above the sink fogged from the inside. Words appeared, written backward at first, then slowly correcting themselves. Open the door, Adrian. The closet handle started turning. Not from my side. A voice spoke through the wood. Calm. Young. Almost kind. Your mother promised. I jammed the brass key into the lock of my own dorm door, though it didn't belong there. It shouldn't have fit. It turned. The hallway snapped back with a sound like a tape being cut. Fluorescent lights. White boards. Someone laughing downstairs. My backpack on my shoulder. I ran. Campus security found me outside Mercer barefoot in the rain, still holding the old pink phone. By sunrise, the phone was dead again. The brass key was gone. Security wrote it up as a panic episode. Jonah stopped answering my texts after winter break. Mrs. Ortega retired before finals. The official answer was that there had never been an Elise Morin in room 313. When I went back to the archive, the article was missing from the database. I withdrew from Westbridge in January. For months, nothing happened. I moved into my father's house, took online classes, got a job unloading trucks at a grocery store, and tried to become boring enough that nothing could find me. I deleted every dating app. I replaced my phone. I stopped sleeping near closets. Last week, a padded envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was my mother's old grocery store loyalty tag, the mailbox key from our old house, and a strip of faded pink ribbon. No brass key. That night, I stayed awake with all the lights on. At 3:12 a.m., my new phone buzzed. A dating app one had never downloaded appeared on the screen. One match. No photos. Just a name. Marianne. At 3:13, something slid under my bedroom door. The brass key was warm. Story 2. At 11:43 p.m., the little green camera light above my laptop blinked on even though the video call had ended 8 minutes earlier. I noticed it because my room was dark except for the screen, and that tiny green dot reflected in the brass key lying beside my mouse. The key was new to me, old but new to my apartment. It had a narrow stem, 3 uneven teeth, and a green plastic tag with the number 12 written in faded marker. I had found it that morning on my nightstand, placed neatly on top of the paperback I'd fallen asleep reading. I lived alone. My name is Evan Rusk. I'm 34, I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and at the time I worked from home reviewing fraud reports for a dating app called Lumen. Fake photos, romance scams, stolen identities, blackmail attempts. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I looked at people pretending to be other people. You would think that made me careful. Mostly it made me lonely. My divorce had been final for 6 months, and my ex-wife had taken the house in Maplewood because she could afford it and I couldn't. I moved into a cheap second-floor apartment over a closed tailor shop on Larch Street. The radiator knocked at night. The hallway smelled like dust, onions, and old paint. My bedroom had one narrow closet with a warped sliding door that never stayed shut unless I jammed a sock under the track. The first time I found the brass key, I assumed it belonged to the previous tenant. I brought it downstairs to my landlord, Mrs. Delaney, a small woman with sharp red glasses and a voice like she was always reading bad news. She looked at the tag, then at me. "Where did you get this?" "Bedroom," I said. "On my nightstand." She held it by the edge, like it was dirty. "That's not for your unit." "What's it for?" She slipped it into her cardigan pocket. "Nothing you need." That should have bothered me more than it did. But I had a 10-hour shift, a frozen burrito for dinner, and a message waiting from a woman named Mira. Her profile said she was 32, a freelance photographer, recently moved back to the Twin Cities to help her mother. Her pictures were ordinary in that believable, beautiful way. Messy hair, gray sweater, a crooked smile, one eye slightly more closed than the other. She had a small scar on her chin and a mole near her left cheekbone. The kind of detail scammers usually forgot. We talked for 11 days. She was funny without trying too hard. She remembered what I said. She asked about my work, but never in the way scammers do, fishing for income or schedule. When I told her I spent my days catching fake profiles, she wrote, "That sounds exhausting. Looking at faces and never knowing who's behind them." I almost told her it was the perfect description of my marriage, but I didn't. Then she sent a photo that made me sit up. It was just her holding a mug near a kitchen window. But behind her, reflected faintly in the glass, was a yellow lampshade with a crack down the side. I had that same lamp in my bedroom. It was an ugly thrift store lamp, mustard yellow, cracked near the top where I'd dropped it during the move. I stared at the photo until my eyes watered. Then I told myself it was coincidence. A lot of cheap lamps look the same. A lot of glass reflections distort things. The next day, I asked her for a video call. She dodged it. "My camera's awful." I pushed. "Mine too. I look tired tonight." "So do I." She stopped replying for 6 hours. That evening, my neighbor, Mr. Kovac, knocked on my door. He lived across the hall, wore suspenders over thermal shirts, and watered one dead plant in his window every morning as if it might forgive him. "You have company?" he asked. "No." He looked past me into my apartment. "Woman humming." "I don't hear anything." "Not now." He tapped one finger against his ear. "Around 3. Same tune." "What tune?" He hummed 3 notes. Low, low, high. I recognized it immediately. Mira had sent me a voice note the night before. She had laughed at the end and hummed those exact 3 notes, saying she did that when she was nervous. Mr. Kovac lowered his voice. If she asks to see you, don't show the room. What? But he was already backing away. Just don't show the room. I thought he was confused. Old building, thin walls, some other tenant on a call. I closed the door and locked it. The brass key was back on my desk. Mrs. Delaney had taken it that morning. I was sure of it, and now it sat beside my keyboard, green tag facing up. Number 12. I didn't call her. I didn't call the police. I did what people do when fear has not become proof yet. I took a picture of it. Then I messaged Mira. Video call. Tonight. Or we stopped talking. She read it instantly. For almost a minute, nothing came back. Then, fine, but don't be cruel. At 11:35 p.m., she called. I remember the exact time because my laptop battery was at 19% and I hadn't plugged it in. The screen flickered once before her face appeared. She looked exactly like the pictures. Not close. Exactly. Same scar on the chin. Same mole. Same tired eyes. Her hair was pinned up messily. She wore the gray sweater from her profile. Behind her was a dark room with beige walls, a framed print, and a closet door. Happy? She asked. Her voice came through soft, almost embarrassed. I'm sorry, I said. It's just my job. I see things. So do I. There was a delay after she said it. Not an internet delay. The words arrived on time, but her lips stayed still for half a second too long. I leaned closer. You okay? She smiled. Then her face stopped. Not the video. Her face. The frame kept moving slightly. A strand of hair shifted near her ear. The light behind her pulsed faintly, but her cheeks, mouth, and forehead froze in the same small smile. Only her eyes moved. They slid left, then right, without the rest of her face changing. Not like a person glancing around, like something behind a photograph was trying to find the edges. Mira? Her eyes snapped toward me. The smile remained. I reached for the trackpad, but before I could end the call, something behind her came into focus. A yellow lampshade, cracked near the top. My lamp. I stopped breathing through my nose. The screen showed Mira sitting in front of what I now understood was not her room. It was my bedroom, filmed from inside my closet. I could see my bed behind her, my blue blanket folded wrong at the corner, the laundry basket with one white sock hanging over the side, the paperback on my nightstand. And then I saw myself, the back of my head, my shoulders hunched over the laptop, my hand frozen above the trackpad. The camera angle was low, peering through the thin gap in the sliding closet door. Myra's eyes moved again, slowly, past me on the screen, towards something behind me in the real room. The call ended. One message appeared. Don't turn around yet. I sat there with my right hand still on the desk. There are moments when the body becomes smarter than the mind. Mine did not move. I stared at the black screen, where my own reflection hovered over the message. Behind my reflection was the dark bedroom. Behind that, the closet. The gap in the sliding door was wider than before. From inside it came the soft scrape of metal against wood. The brass key trembled beside my mouse. Then it rolled half an inch by itself. I stood so fast the chair tipped over. I did not turn around. I kept my eyes on the laptop screen and back toward the bedroom door, watching the reflection. The closet door shifted. An inch. 2. A strip of darkness opened. Something pale moved in it, low to the ground. I grabbed my phone and ran. In the hallway, the light above the stairs buzzed and flickered. Mr. Kovac's door was open a crack. He whispered, "You let her see." I pounded on his door. "Call the police." He didn't open it. "She was here before you," he said. "What does that mean?" The crack narrowed. Apartment 12 was hers. I ran barefoot down the stairs and out into freezing rain. My phone was at 8%. I called 911 from the sidewalk in front of the old tailor shop, staring up at my bedroom window. The light was on. A woman stood behind the glass. Not Mira. At least, not completely. Her face looked unfinished from that distance, like a portrait left in the rain. but I could see her eyes. They moved separately from her head, scanning the street, searching. When the police arrived, she was gone. They searched my apartment. 2 officers checked the closet, the bathroom, under the bed, the fire escape. Nothing. No woman. No hidden camera. No forced entry. But they did find something. Behind the loose panel at the back of the bedroom closet was a space about the size of a shoebox. Inside were 17 printed photos, a cracked phone, and a stack of folded papers held together with a rubber band. The photos were of me. Not recent ones. Old ones. Me carrying boxes into the building. Me sitting at the desk. Me asleep, mouth open, one hand under the pillow. Me brushing my teeth in the bathroom mirror, taken from behind me. The oldest photo was dated 3 weeks before I moved in. The papers were printouts from Lumen's internal support system. Reports I had handled. My notes. My name. One ticket was circled in red marker. Mara Bell, identity theft/stalking concern. I knew the name before I opened the file. I didn't remember the case, but my body did. A sour, metallic taste spread across my tongue. Mara Bell had submitted a report 19 months earlier. Someone was using her photos on dating apps. Not just public photos, private ones. Pictures taken inside her apartment while she slept. She said the fake account had messaged men pretending to be her. She attached screenshots. One of them showed a message from the fake account. "Don't turn around yet." I had closed the report as unverifiable. That was what the system told us to do when we couldn't prove platform origin. We had quotas. We had scripts. We had managers who called unresolved cases emotional clutter. I must have skimmed her evidence, clicked a drop-down, and moved on to the next face. Mara Bell disappeared 12 days later. The police asked me if I knew her. I said no. Then I said I didn't think so. Then I stopped talking. Mrs. Delaney arrived while they were bagging the papers. She looked older without her red glasses. She rented 12 before it was split, she said. "This building doesn't have a 12, one officer told her. Mrs. Delaney looked at my bedroom closet. It did. I spent that night at a motel near the highway. The room smelled like bleach and wet carpet. I pushed the desk against the door, unplugged the television, and covered the mirror with a towel. At 3:12 a.m., my phone lit up. No number. Just a photo. It showed me in the motel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the phone. The picture had been taken from inside the bathroom. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I stared at the towel hanging over the bathroom mirror. Then a second message came. "You reviewed the wrong face." I left everything. Shoes, wallet, charger. I ran to the lobby and stayed under the fluorescent lights until morning, shaking so hard the clerk gave me coffee in a paper cup and didn't ask questions. After that, I quit Lumen. I moved in with my brother in Duluth for a while. The official report said probable stalking, no suspect identified. The photos were real. The support ticket was real. The cracked phone belonged to Mara Bell, but forensics couldn't recover anything useful from it. They never found the brass key. That's the part one didn't tell anyone. Because when the police sealed my apartment, I watched one officer drop it into an evidence bag. I saw the green tag. Number 12. I saw him write the case number across the label. 3 months passed. I got a new phone, a new job, and a therapist who told me trauma attaches itself to patterns. Times. Sounds. Objects. She said the mind looks for danger, even when danger has passed. I wanted to believe her. Last night, my brother and his wife went to a wedding in Superior. I stayed home with their dog, a sleepy old lab that barked at delivery boxes and thunder. At 11:43 p.m., the dog walked to the hallway closet, sat down, and began whining. My laptop was closed on the kitchen table. The green camera light was on. I opened it with one finger. A video call filled the screen. Mira sat in darkness, smiling her frozen smile. Behind her was a room I knew too well. My brother's guest room. My suitcase lay open on the bed. My jacket hung over the chair. The old lab sat in the hallway, whining at the closet door. Myra's eyes moved toward me, then toward the hall. A message appeared before the call cut out. You got another room. From the hallway came a small metallic slide. Something passed under the closet door and stopped against the floorboard. The brass key lay there with its green tag facing up. At 11:43, something inside my brother's closet turned the lock. Story 3. The dating app showed my sister's chipped blue butterfly hair clip on a woman who had been missing for 3 years. Not a similar clip. Not something I could explain away as trendy or mass-produced. It was Evie's clip, the cheap plastic one with one wing cracked from when I stepped on it during an argument, and she made me glue it back together. In the photo, it held back a curtain of dark hair, half covering a face I knew better than my own. My sister was smiling. The profile name was Mara, 22, 2 miles away. I was 18 then, living in Gray Falls, Pennsylvania, and working closing shifts at Miller's Pharmacy while finishing my senior year online. My mom had stopped being a real person after Evie vanished. She still went to work at the county records office, still paid bills, still left sticky notes on the fridge, but most nights she sat in Evie's room with the lights off, like grief needed privacy. Evie disappeared on October 14th, 3 years before I found the profile. She was 19. I was 15. We'd fought that afternoon because I'd borrowed her denim jacket and left eyeliner in the pocket uncapped. She called me at 10:46 p.m. while I was pretending to sleep because I was still mad. I didn't answer. The police found her car near Route 9 with the driver's door open, her phone dead under the passenger seat, and one blue butterfly hair clip missing from her vanity. I found the profile at 12:18 a.m. on a Friday in February, sitting on my bed with a bowl of dry cereal and my phone at 7%. I had downloaded the app mostly as a joke after my coworker Tasha said everyone in Gray Falls was either married, arrested, or on there. The first photo was Evie in a yellow sweater, standing beside the old quarry fence. That photo had been on missing posters. The second was the one that made my skin prickle. Evie in our laundry room, sitting on the dryer, wearing pajama shorts and that hair clip. No one outside our family had that picture. I told myself it was a catfish. A cruel one, sure, but the internet had no shortage of people who enjoyed turning other people's pain into bait. I screenshotted everything, plugged in my phone, and opened a message. Hey, cute clip. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Lena. I stopped breathing through my nose. My name wasn't on my profile. I'd used Lee and a blurry picture of my cat. I typed, "Do I know you?" The reply came back, "You still sleep on the side near the wall." Peanut. No one called me Peanut except Evie. She started it when I was 6 because I used to hide peanut butter crackers under my pillow, and she kept using it because she knew I hated it. The room around me got too quiet. The furnace clicked off downstairs. A car passed outside, tires whispering through slush, and for a second I saw Evie reflected in my black phone screen instead of myself. I typed, "Who is this?" Someone who found her. Found who? Don't make me say it. You already know. I nearly woke Mom, but I could picture her face when I showed her. Hope was not gentle in our house. Hope was a tool that had already cut her open too many times. So I messaged back, pretending to be interested, pretending I was just another lonely girl up too late. "Where are you?" The answer was a photo. Not Evie. A place. It showed the old Gray Falls water tower at night, the one with rust running down the legs like dried blood. The picture was taken from the cemetery hill, maybe 5 miles from my house. In the corner, blurred by rain, was the edge of someone's thumb. Under it, the account wrote, "Closer than she got." I saved the image and shut off my phone. The next morning, I told Tasha at work because she had the kind of anger that made things less unreal. She was 20, wore red glasses, and had a habit of tapping receipts against the counter when she was thinking. "Block it," she said. "I can't." "Lena, what if it's someone who knows something?" She looked past me toward the cold medicine aisle, where an old man was reading labels with both hands shaking. "Then don't do it alone." That night, she came over after closing with convenience store coffee and her brother's baseball bat. Mom was asleep with the TV on in the living room, volume low, blue light moving over her face. I opened the app. Mara had sent another photo. It was the back of Miller's pharmacy, taken from across the alley. I could see the employee door where Tasha and I had stood less than an hour earlier. A smear of salt marked the step. My car was parked under the broken security light. Tasha stopped tapping her cup. Was someone out there? I asked. I didn't see anyone. The message under the photo said, "She watched you work before she left." That was wrong. Evie had never cared about the pharmacy. I hadn't even worked there until last year. Then another message came in. "Ask your mother about room 6. Tasha said, "Do not ask her tonight." But I did. Mom was awake when I went downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table with her robe pulled tight. She had Evie's missing poster in front of her, the old one with curled corners and a phone number that no longer worked. When I said room 6, she looked at me like I had spoken in Evie's voice. "Where did you hear that?" I showed her the messages. She read them without blinking. Then she got up, went to the junk drawer, and pulled out a small envelope I'd never seen. Inside was a motel receipt from the Maple Rest Inn, room 6, dated October 14th. The night Evie disappeared. Paid in cash. No name. Police found it folded in her glove box, Mom said. They said it might mean nothing. You never told me. They told me not to feed rumors. They told me lots of things. At the bottom of the envelope was a second item wrapped in tissue paper, the broken half of a blue plastic butterfly wing. Mom said, they found that in the motel sink. I didn't sleep. At 3:04 a.m., Mara sent another photo. This one showed our street sign, Waverly Lane. The green paint was scratched, and the reflective letters shone white under the flash. Beyond it, out of focus, was our row of houses, porch lights tucked into darkness. Tasha whispered, "Call the police." Mom did. A young officer came first, then a detective named Harlan, who smelled like black coffee and wintergreen gum. He took my phone carefully, as if it might bite him, and asked the same questions 3 different ways. Did I know who might do this? Had anyone been bothering me? Did Evie ever mention someone named Mara? No. When he stepped into the hall to call someone, I heard him say, "Same pattern." Mom heard it too. "What pattern?" she demanded. He came back in with his jaw set. "There have been reports," he said. "Reports of what?" He rubbed one hand over his mouth. "Fake profiles using missing people. Most are scams." "Most?" He looked at me then. "Don't answer after midnight. Whatever they send, don't answer." "Why?" He hesitated. From my phone, sitting in an evidence bag on the table, came the soft chime of a new message. Detective Harlan did not touch it. The message preview lit the plastic. "You came back early." No one spoke. By morning, the profile was gone. The detective said the app had no useful registration information, no stable IP, nothing traceable. He said the account might have been routed through stolen devices. He said words like harassment and ongoing investigation and try to maintain normal routines. Normal routines. Like my sister wasn't being warned by something online. 2 days passed. Nothing happened. Mom stopped going to work. Tasha slept on our couch with the bat beside her. I kept seeing the butterfly clip in corners of the house, in the curve of a spoon, in the folded laundry, in the crack of blue paint on the basement door. On Monday, I found Evie's old phone. It was in a shoebox behind the loose panel at the back of her closet. I only found it because I was looking for anything connected to room 6. The phone was an old white model with a cracked corner and a dead battery. Her real phone had been found in her car, so this one made no sense. I charged it with a cable from our junk drawer. At 14%, it turned on. No passcode. There were no photos, no contacts, no texts. Only one app sat on the home screen, the same dating app. The profile name was already logged in. Mara. I dropped the phone onto the carpet and stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then a message arrived on Evie's dead phone. Not from Mara. From me. My profile picture. My fake name, Lee. The message read, "Cute clip." I backed out and opened the profile. My photos were there. Not the blurry cat picture. Real photos. Me at work. Me taking out the trash. Me brushing snow off my windshield. Me standing in Evie's room with her missing poster reflected in the window. The bio said, 18. 2 miles away. Still sleeps by the wall. That was the moment the house stopped feeling like a house. The walls felt thin. The vents felt open. Every black window felt like an eye pressed close from the other side. Mom wanted to leave immediately, but the detective told us to wait for a patrol car. Tasha stood at the front door holding the bat in both hands. At 11:57 p.m., the power went out. Not the whole street. Just us. Across Waverly Lane, porch lights stayed on. Mrs. Bell's television flickered behind her curtains. Our house went black so completely I could hear Mom breathing in the kitchen. My phone buzzed. Mara was back. A new photo loaded slowly over my weak signal. Our front porch, taken from the steps. The welcome mat was crooked. The brass house number, 17, caught the flash. At the bottom of the frame sat the blue butterfly clip, whole again, both wings shining wet. Tasha looked through the peephole. "No one," she said. Then something scratched once on the other side of the door. Not a knock. A drag. Plastic on wood. Mom said very quietly, "Evie?" I grabbed her wrist before she could move. The back door opened. I know it opened because I heard the weather strip peel away from the frame. I heard the tiny bell Mom hung there after Evie vanished give one soft ring. Detective Harlan arrived 6 minutes later. That's what the report says. 6 minutes. It felt longer because we spent most of it locked in the upstairs bathroom, Tasha bracing the door with her shoulder, while Mom whispered Evie's name into a towel to keep herself quiet. Downstairs, something walked through our house. It did not hurry. It opened cabinets. It moved chairs. It pressed buttons on the microwave until it beeped. It climbed 3 steps, stopped, and went back down. Then my phone buzzed against the tile. A photo appeared. It showed the bathroom door from the hallway. On our side of the door, we were all visible in the mirror above the sink. The picture had been taken from inside the bathroom. Tasha screamed then. Not loud, just a small broken sound, like air leaving a tire. The police found the back door unlocked, the kitchen drawers open, and wet footprints leading from the porch to Evie's room. They were barefoot prints, small, the size Evie wore, but too deep at the toes, like whoever made them had been leaning forward. On Evie's pillow lay the blue butterfly hair clip. Detective Harlan drove us to a motel outside town. Not Maple Rest. A bright chain place by the highway with vending machines and cameras, and a clerk who called everyone Han. Mom took a sedative the hospital gave her and slept in the bed closest to the door. Tasha stayed in the chair with the bat across her lap. I did not sleep. At 2:13 a.m., my phone lit up. No sound, just light. The dating app was open, even though I had deleted it. Mara sent one final photo. At first I didn't understand what I was seeing. It was dark, grainy, washed green by the motel's smoke detector light. Then I recognized the bedspread, the beige headboard, my mother's hand hanging over the edge of the mattress. The photo was of me sleeping, not at home, in the motel room, taken that same night from the corner near the bathroom. I threw the phone across the room hard enough to crack the screen. Tasha woke. Mom woke. The clerk called the police again. No one found anyone in the room, or the hallway, or the parking lot. But when I looked in the bathroom mirror, there was a fogged patch in the shape of a hand, though none of us had showered. Written beneath it, backward from the other side of the glass, were 4 words. She answered for you. We moved out of Gray Falls the next week. Mom and I stayed with my aunt in Harrisburg, and Tasha went back only once to pick up our things with 2 officers and her brother. Detective Harlan called twice, then stopped. The official version became harassment by an unknown person, possibly connected to Evie's disappearance. That is what people say when the truth has nowhere safe to stand. I don't use dating apps anymore. I keep tape over my laptop camera. I sleep with my phone in another room. Most nights, I manage not to think about Evie's last call, or room 6, or the way my mother almost opened the front door because grief can make any voice sound familiar. But yesterday, a padded envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was my phone, the one I threw across the motel room. The screen was still cracked. The battery was dead. Taped to the back was Evie's blue butterfly hair clip, the glued wing split in exactly the place I broke it years ago. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I charged the phone. At 2:13 a.m., it turned on by itself, and my sister's profile was the first thing I saw. This time, the distance said 0 feet. Story 4. The VHS tape on my welcome mat was still warm when I picked it up. That was the part one couldn't explain away later. Not the handwriting. Not the fact that almost nobody knew my apartment number. Not even the little red heart sticker pressed over the tape's label like a cheap Valentine. It was warm. Like someone had carried it under their coat all the way up 3 flights of stairs and set it down seconds before I opened the door. My name is Mara Vale. I'm 26, and at the time this happened, I lived alone in a narrow apartment above a shuttered nail salon in Dayton, Ohio. I made videos about horror movies, mostly old slashers, lost media rumors, and those weird regional ghost stories people send you when your channel gets big enough for strangers to think they know you. I wasn't famous. Not really. I had around 63,000 subscribers, which meant I could pay half my rent from ad money, and the other half by editing wedding videos for couples who always wanted cinematic but natural. My life wasn't glamorous. My kitchen ceiling leaked. My car only started if I turned the key twice and whispered something nice to it. But online, people called me the final girl of film essays. I hated that, but I never corrected them. The VHS had one word written on the label in black marker. Mara. Under it, in smaller letters, someone had written, "Perfect cut." I should say right now that I collected tapes. That was part of my channel. I had shelves behind me full of old horror VHS cases, cracked plastic, sun-bleached covers, rental stickers still clinging to the corners. Fans mailed me tapes sometimes. Usually they sent them to my P.O. box. Not my apartment. I stood in the hall with the tape in one hand and my phone in the other, listening to the building settle. Mrs. Donnelly, my downstairs neighbor, had left her door open a few inches like she always did when she was frying onions. The smell was drifting up the stairwell. I called down, "Did you see anyone up here?" Her door opened wider. She was in her bathrobe, holding a wooden spoon like a tiny weapon. "No," she said, but somebody laughed. "What?" "On the stairs. A man, maybe. Hard to tell. Like he was listening to something funny in headphones." That was the first detail I edited out of the video I made later. Because I did make a video. That's the shameful part. I filmed the tape on my desk that night, under my little ring light, trying to make it look spooky without admitting I was actually scared. I put on my calm YouTube voice. Tonight, someone sent me a mysterious VHS labeled with my name. Either this is a deeply weird fan submission, or I am about to be murdered by the most committed analog horror enthusiast in Ohio. I laughed after I said it. The tape sat beside my hand. The red heart sticker shined under the light. I didn't own a working VCR anymore, but the theater where I worked weekends did. The Rialto was one of those single-screen places that survived on nostalgia and community grants. The carpet smelled like butter salt and rainwater. The manager, Paul, was 71 and wore suspenders every day, even with t-shirts. The next afternoon, I brought the tape in a grocery bag. Paul was counting cash in the box office when he saw it. "Don't put strange tapes in my machine," he said. "You haven't even heard the premise." "I heard enough from your face." I told him someone had left it at my apartment. His expression changed. Paul had one of those faces that looked permanently unimpressed, so when concern showed up on it, you noticed. "You want advice?" he asked. "Probably not. Throw it away." I didn't. The VCR was in the projection booth, under a metal shelf full of cables and unlabeled remotes. I slid the tape in. For 3 seconds, the screen was blue. Then my own bedroom appeared. Not a blurry shot through a window. Not some trick with a stolen clip from my channel. My bedroom. The camera angle was high, almost at the ceiling, looking down at my bed, my laptop, the laundry basket with one sock hanging over the side. The footage was dark but clear enough to see the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck around the window when I couldn't sleep after my brother died. Nobody online knew about those stars. I stopped the tape. Paul said my name quietly. I pressed play again, because sometimes panic turns into a stupid need for evidence. On screen, I walked into the bedroom wearing the green hoodie I had worn 2 nights before. I sat on the bed. I cried without making noise. That was the worst part to see. Not the spying. The privacy of that moment. My face wiped clean of performance. Just me, tired and alone, holding my brother's old hospital bracelet between my fingers. He'd died 8 months earlier after a fentanyl overdose everyone in my family called an accident because the truth had too many sharp edges. I had moved to Dayton after his funeral because staying in Columbus meant passing the same gas station where he'd been found. The video zoomed in on the bracelet in my hand. Then text appeared at the bottom of the screen. "She still keeps it." Another line followed. "That's good. It means she's sentimental." I stepped back from the monitor. Paul reached over and ejected the tape so hard it clacked. "Police," he said. I nodded, but before I could move, my phone buzzed. A new Instagram message. The username was simple, perfect_for_Mara. The message said, "Did Paul like the screening?" I dropped the phone on the floor. Paul locked the theater doors early that day. He drove me to the police station himself, one hand gripping the wheel, the other tapping his knee like he was counting down from something. The officer at the desk was polite in the tired way people get when they know your fear will become paperwork. I showed her the tape, the message, screenshots of previous comments from the same account. Because yes, there had been comments before. For almost a month, perfect_for_Mara had been replying to my posts. At first, it seemed harmless. "You look tired in tonight's upload. Chamomile helps. You always rank Black Christmas too low when you're sad. Your left hand shakes when you lie about liking a movie." I thought it was someone who watched too closely. Every creator gets those people. Viewers who think noticing your coffee mug makes them intimate. Men who call themselves supportive while explaining your own face to you. Then the messages got specific. "Don't take Wayne Avenue after midnight. The light by the laundromat is out. Your Thursday shift got moved to 6. Eat before you go. You forgot to lock the kitchen window again." That last one made me check. It was locked. From the inside. The police took the tape. They told me not to engage with the account. They said they'd send someone to look around my apartment, but resources were limited, and there had been a lot of online harassment cases lately. That night, I slept at Paul's house in his guest room under a crocheted blanket that smelled like cedar. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up on the nightstand. Perfect_for_Mara. You look wrong in someone else's house. I turned the phone face down. A second message came through. "We voted. You should go home." I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, Paul's wife, Anita, made me toast and kept touching my shoulder like she was checking whether I was still solid. "You need to stay offline," she said. "I can't just disappear." "You can." She was right. I should have. But my channel was the one thing that still felt like mine after my brother died. It was my job, my distraction, my proof that some part of me could keep moving. And beneath all the fear, there was another feeling I hate admitting. I wanted to know who it was. So I made a mistake that nearly got me killed. I posted a short video saying I was taking a break because of a stalking situation, and I asked people to report the account. Within 10 minutes, the account vanished. Within 20, I received an email from a Proton address with no subject. Attached was a screenshot of a chat room. At first, I thought it was a fan Discord. The background was dark gray. The usernames were stacked on one side. There was a poll in the center of the screen. What should he say next? A. Tell her he knows about the bracelet. B. Mention Paul. C. Send the kitchen window photo. D. Say we voted. Option D was highlighted. Beneath it, hundreds of comments scrolled upward. She scares easy but recovers fast. Don't push too romantic yet. Use we once and see if she notices. Camera 3 is too grainy. Who has eyes on the theater? Then I saw the name of the room. The Perfect Match Project, Mara Vale. My hands went numb around the phone. The screenshot wasn't proof of one stalker. It was proof of an audience. Hundreds of strangers had been playing me like a game. They weren't just watching my videos. They were watching me, studying me, voting on what to say, sharing facts, collecting pieces of my life like clues in a puzzle box. A new email arrived while I was still staring at the first. No subject, just one line. You were easier to build than the others. Under that was a file, a spreadsheet. I opened it because fear makes some choices feel unavoidable. Rows and rows of information filled the screen. Favorite films, allergies, sleep schedule, parking habits, delivery orders, medication history, password guesses, family names, places I avoided, phrases that calmed me down, phrases that made me defensive. One column was labeled grief access points. My brother's name was there, Elliot. Next to it, someone had written, use sparingly. Too strong and she shuts down. I threw up in Paul's downstairs bathroom. After that, things moved fast. The police suddenly cared more when Paul called a detective he knew from church. My apartment was searched. They found a pinhole camera in the smoke detector above my bedroom door, and another inside the little ceramic ghost I kept on my bookshelf. That ghost had been a fan gift. The return address was my P.O. box. I tried to remember opening it, but all I could picture was myself smiling on camera, holding it up for viewers. Look how cute this is, I'd said. You guys know me too well. The detective, a woman named Reyes with silver hair cut blunt at her chin, asked if I had enemies. I said no. Then I remembered the forum. When I was 17, I spent a summer on a horror site called Night Orchard. It was one of those old message boards with black backgrounds and red text, where everyone pretended to be in a secret society. There were fake rituals, fake missing tapes, fake scavenger hunts. I was lonely and mean in the specific way teenagers get when they think nobody online is real. There had been a thread called Perfect Match. People posted about influencers, local streamers, micro-celebrities. Not famous people, reachable people. Users would make profiles of them. What they liked, what they feared, how to win them. I commented once. Only once. A girl named Lena had a small channel about abandoned malls. Someone posted her address. Someone else asked what would scare her most. I wrote, basements. She always avoids them. I forgot about it for years. Then Lena disappeared. At the time, the forum said it was part of the game. A stunt. A rebrand. People joked about it for weeks. Her body was never found. I told Detective Reyes. She didn't react much, but she wrote everything down. Why you? She asked. I said, because I commented. No, she said. Why now? I didn't have an answer until that evening, when Paul brought me a padded envelope the police had missed from the theater mail. No return address. Inside was another VHS tape. Same red heart sticker. Same handwriting. Mara, final cut. Detective Reyes told me not to watch it. For once, I listened. The police took it. They logged it. They said it would go to evidence. At 11:03 p.m., I got a live stream link from perfect_for_Mara. The thumbnail showed the tape sitting in a VCR. The stream title was, She Won't Watch, So We Will. There were 418 viewers waiting. I called Reyes. No answer. I called Paul. Busy. I called 911 and tried to explain that an online group was streaming evidence from inside a police station, but even as I spoke, the stream began. The footage showed a room I recognized immediately. The Rialto's basement. Old posters leaned against the brick walls. Stacks of broken seats sat under plastic sheets. The emergency light made everything red. A chair was placed in the center of the room. On it was my green hoodie, the one from the bedroom footage. A chat window ran beside the video. She'll come. She needs answers. Someone asked about Elliot. No, save Elliot for the van. Then a message appeared from the account at the top. Mara, you have 20 minutes. Come alone, or we upload the hospital video. I knew what that meant. The hospital video was from the night Elliot died. My mother had called me from the emergency room, screaming. I had filmed nothing, but there were security cameras everywhere. If they had that footage, they had reached into places that should have been sealed by law and decency. I could have stayed. I could have waited for police. But I saw my brother's hospital bracelet on the basement floor beside the chair. They had taken it from my bag at Paul's house. So I went. The Rialto was only 6 blocks away. Rain had turned the sidewalks shiny. My phone battery was at 14%. Every parked car looked occupied. Every second-story window looked like a face. The theater marquee was dark except for one broken bulb flashing over the word midnight, left over from a screening 2 weeks earlier. The front doors were unlocked. Inside, the lobby smelled like wet carpet and popcorn oil. The candy counter lights were on. A small paper cup sat beside the register, half full of cherry slush. There was a note taped to it. "You always say red tastes fake." Below that, "We disagree." From the auditorium came the soft click of a projector running. I moved toward the basement door behind the screen. Each step made the old floorboards complain. I kept expecting someone to grab me, but the theater stayed empty. That made it worse. At the basement door, my phone buzzed. Perfect_for_. Smile when you enter. They paid for this. I looked up. In the corner above the exit sign, a tiny black camera lens reflected the lobby light. I opened the basement door. The stairs were narrow, painted gray, damp at the edges. At the bottom, the red emergency light hummed. My hoodie sat on the chair, just like in the stream. But the bracelet wasn't on the floor anymore. It was tied around the wrist of a mannequin. The mannequin stood behind the chair wearing a cheap brown wig cut like my hair. Its face had been covered with a printout of one of my thumbnails. My mouth opened mid-sentence, my eyes bright from ring light. Behind it, someone whispered. She came back early. Not from the room, from my phone. The live stream was open by itself. The chat was moving too fast to read, but one poll sat frozen at the top. What should Mara learn first? A. We know why Elliot called her. B. Paul let us in. C. Lena voted for her too. D. The match is already inside. Option D began climbing. I backed toward the stairs. A floorboard creaked above me. Then Paul came down. He looked pale and older than he had that morning. His suspenders hung loose. There was duct tape residue on one wrist. "Mara," he said, "run." A shape moved behind him. Not one man. 3 people in raincoats, faces covered with white theater masks from the prop closet. Behind them, more feet appeared at the top of the stairs. One held a phone out, filming. One waved at me. A calm voice from somewhere behind the masks said, "We built him for you, Mara, but you never understood." "Built who?" I said. The masked person tilted their head. Perfect_for_, Mara. That's when I understood the worst part. There was no admirer. There never had been. The sweet messages, the threats, the jokes, the timing, the knowledge, the tenderness, the cruelty, all of it had been assembled by committee. 100 hands making one voice. A crowd wearing intimacy as a costume. And somehow, even knowing that, the voice still felt singular. It knew me better than most people who loved me. Paul lunged at the nearest mask. I ran. I don't remember the next few minutes cleanly. I remember wet stairs. A hand catching my sleeve. The red heart sticker from the tape stuck to someone's glove. Paul shouting my name. The auditorium screen glowing white. My own face projected 20 feet tall with the chat crawling over it like ants. I grabbed the metal fire extinguisher by the exit and swung without aiming. Someone screamed. I made it through the side door into the alley. Rain hit my face. My sock came half off inside my shoe. I ran until I saw blue lights turning onto Wayne Avenue. Detective Reyes found me behind a dumpster, clutching the fire extinguisher like I planned to keep fighting the weather. They arrested 6 people at the theater that night. 2 were from Ohio. 1 was from Indiana. 1 was a substitute teacher. 1 worked in medical billing. 1 had been a moderator on my channel for 11 months. Paul survived. He had tried to warn me after they forced him to open the theater. Anita still sends me holiday cards. The police said the online group was bigger than anyone expected. Servers disappeared. Accounts deleted themselves. Some members claimed it was performance art. Some said they thought I knew. Some insisted there had been a real, perfect match guiding them, an original user none of them had met. A username that never typed but always posted the winning poll before votes were counted. Its name was Orchard Root. That was the part nobody wanted to discuss with me. I moved 3 months later, deleted my channel, changed my number. I live in a quiet town now and work at a library where nobody cares what I think about horror movies. For a while, I believed silence could make me ordinary again. Then last Tuesday, a padded envelope arrived at my new apartment. No postage, no return address. Inside was a VHS tape with a red heart sticker over the label. I don't own a VCR anymore. I don't collect tapes. I hadn't told anyone this address. The label had one word written on it in black marker. Lena, and underneath, in smaller letters, your turn to vote. The tape was still warm. Story 5. My wife's wedding ring rolled out of a padded envelope from a dating app, packed in damp cemetery dirt, while the real one was still hanging around my neck. I stood at my kitchen counter in bare feet, staring at it under the yellow light above the sink. The envelope had no return address. Just my name, Daniel Harrow, printed in neat block letters, and beneath it, one line in smaller writing. For your match. The ring was identical to Mara's. Same thin gold band. Same tiny nick along the bottom, where she had dropped it in a grocery store parking lot 2 winters before she died. Same engraving inside. D+M, keep choosing me. I touched the ring on the chain around my neck to make sure it was still there. It was. That should have been the moment I called the police. Instead, I rinsed the dirt from the second ring, set it beside the first, and opened the dating app again. Grief makes you do things that look insane from the outside. I know that now. Back then, I had been a widower for 9 months, living in our little house on Bracken Street in a town outside Harrisburg, working as a night dispatcher for a plumbing company, and pretending I was fine because people got uncomfortable when I told the truth. The truth was that I still bought Mara's oat milk every Sunday. I still slept on my side of the bed. I still lowered the TV when the upstairs pipes clicked because, for half a second, my body thought she was coming down the hall. Mara had died the previous February from a brain aneurysm while I was driving her to urgent care. She had complained about a headache during dinner. By the time we reached the hospital, she couldn't remember the word for coat. She was 34. I was 36. People kept saying she would want me to move on. My sister said it. My coworkers said it. Even Father McKenna said it after the funeral, standing in the church basement with a paper plate of cookies in his hands. But nobody explained how to do that in a house full of her coffee mugs and hair ties and half-finished crossword books. The app was called Kindred. I didn't find it in the normal app store. It came from an ad that appeared under an article about grief support groups. A black screen. White letters. Meet someone who understands what you lost. I thought it was for widows and widowers. That made it feel less pathetic, or maybe just less public. I downloaded it at 1:08 in the morning, sitting on the bathroom floor because that was the only room where I could cry without seeing her things. The app didn't ask what I was looking for. It asked, "What are you missing?" I almost deleted it then. Instead, I typed conversation. My first match came 2 nights later. Her name was Elaine. No last name. Her profile photo showed a woman seated at a diner booth with her face turned away from the camera. Dark hair tucked behind one ear. A cream sweater. Hands around a white coffee cup. Her bio said, "I listen better after midnight." I should mention this now. Mara had a cream sweater exactly like that. I noticed, but I told myself half the women in Pennsylvania owned a cream sweater. I told myself grief was turning every stranger into a ghost. Elaine messaged first. "You don't have to make yourself interesting for me." That was how Mara used to talk. Not the words exactly, but the shape of them. Gentle, practical, like she was setting a blanket over something broken. I wrote back, "That's a relief. I've got nothing interesting left." She replied, "You still have the bird feeder with no birds." I looked toward the kitchen window. Outside, in the dark, the old cedar bird feeder hung from the maple tree. Mara had bought it the summer before she died, then forgotten to fill it after squirrels chewed through the lid. I had never posted a picture of it. It wasn't visible from the street, unless you stood inside the side yard near the trash cans. I typed, "Do you live nearby?" For a while, the screen only showed 3 little dots. Then, I did. That was the first strange thing. I explained it away badly. Maybe I had mentioned the bird feeder on Facebook. Maybe my sister had. Maybe Elaine lived in the neighborhood and had seen me through the window. That last thought should have scared me more, but loneliness has a way of making attention feel like warmth. We talked every night after that. Elaine never asked for photos, never pushed to meet, never flirted in the obvious way people do on apps. She asked whether I had eaten, whether I had fixed the basement step, whether I still kept the bedroom window cracked even in winter. Then she started using Mara's words. Not all at once, just little things. She called the microwave the impatient box. She wrote "sleep soft" instead of "good night." One night, after I told her work had been awful, she replied, "Come here, Thundercloud." I dropped the phone onto the couch. Mara had called me Thundercloud whenever I got quiet and serious over something small. She had said it the night we met, after I complained for 10 minutes about a bar charging $12 for a whiskey sour. I asked Elaine where she heard that. Her answer came a full minute later. "You left it with her." The next day, I brought my phone to work and showed my friend Reggie. He handled scheduling during the day shift and knew enough about tech to be annoying about passwords. We sat in the back office beside a humming soda machine while Rain tapped the loading bay door. Reggie scrolled through the messages, chewing the inside of his cheek. "This is either somebody who knows you," he said, "or you gave this app permission to everything. It's not in my settings." "Then delete it." I tried. He glanced up. "What do you mean?" I took the phone back and held my thumb on the Kindred icon until it trembled. No little X appeared. No delete option. Nothing. Reggie's face lost its usual smirk. "Turn it off. Factory reset it. I need my phone for work. Then at least don't meet anybody from this thing." He handed it back, but he didn't let go right away. "And Dan?" "Yeah. If it starts sounding like Mara, that doesn't mean it is." That warning stuck with me for maybe 6 hours. At 12:14 a.m., Elaine sent a voice note. I watched the gray audio bubble sit there on the screen. 7 seconds long. My thumb hovered above it for so long the display dimmed. Then I played it. Static first. A soft breath. Then Mara's voice, tired and amused, said, "Danny, you left the porch light on again." I backed into the kitchen chair hard enough to scrape the floor. It was her. Not close. Not similar. Her. The slight rasp in the morning. The little lift on my name. The way she sounded half annoyed and half fond. I played it again. And again. By the 4th time, I noticed the sound behind her voice. A low mechanical hum. Not like a phone recording. Like the cooling unit in a morgue. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I drove to St. Agnes Cemetery with both wedding rings in my jacket pocket and mud still on my kitchen floor from the envelope. Mara's grave was on the east side near a crooked row of pines. Her headstone was simple, because that was all I could afford after the hospital bills. The grass above her had settled unevenly over the winter, forming a shallow dip across the middle. Nothing looked dug up. Still, there was dirt on the stone. Not much. Just 3 finger marks dragged across her name. Mara Elise Harrow. Behind me, someone said, "You shouldn't bring it here." I turned. The cemetery caretaker stood beside a utility cart, wearing an orange raincoat and rubber boots. His name was Mr. Voss. I remembered him from the burial. He had a narrow face and one cloudy eye that seemed to look past me. "Bring what?" I asked. He nodded at my pocket. "The kept thing." I said nothing. He looked toward the pines. The morning wind moved through them with a dry, papery sound. "Some people don't bury enough," he said. "Some bury too much. Either way, something notices." "What does that mean?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If a woman speaks from an app, from a radio, from an old voicemail, you leave her unanswered. Did this happen before? His cloudy eye shifted to Mara's grave. There was a funeral home on Alder Road, he said. Holloway House. They had ideas about reunion. Before I could ask anything else, his radio crackled. He turned away and drove the cart down the path, leaving 2 wet tire tracks behind him. That afternoon, I searched Holloway House. It had been a funeral home until 1998, closed after a lawsuit. No details. Old newspaper snippets mentioned improper storage of remains, unlicensed embalming, missing personal effects. Rings, lockets, watches, wedding bands. One photo showed the building in its better years. White columns, black awning, flower beds along the porch. Another showed the front windows boarded over. I recognized the porch. It was in Elaine's profile photo, not the diner booth one. Another picture I had barely looked at. Elaine standing on a porch in a cream sweater, face blurred by sunlight, one hand resting against a white column. I opened the app. Her message was already waiting. You found the place where they taught us to wait. I typed, "Who are you?" The reply came instantly. "You know who I learned from." Then she sent a photo. It showed my living room, the couch, the lamp, the quilt Mara's mother had made. On the coffee table sat the 2 wedding rings, although they were both still in my pocket. Beside them was a folded napkin from a restaurant called Bellini's, where Mara and I had gone every anniversary because the food was cheap and the owner always gave us free tiramisu. Written on the napkin in Mara's handwriting were 4 words. Dinner tomorrow. Wear black. I left the house that night and stayed with my sister, Claire. I told her someone was harassing me. I didn't tell her the voice note sounded like Mara because Claire would have taken my phone and maybe that would have saved me. But at 3:02 a.m., Kindred opened on its own. The screen glowed on the nightstand beside Claire's guest bed. Elaine had sent another voice note. I didn't touch it. The audio played anyway. Mara whispered, "You promised you'd come when I was afraid." Claire woke up across the hall and called my name. The guest room door was open. At the end of the hallway, a woman in a cream sweater stood with her back to me. Only for a second. Then the hallway light flickered, and she was gone. Claire found me sitting on the floor with my phone in both hands. She begged me to call the police. I almost did. Then Kindred sent one final message. "Bring the ring you kept. Come before they close me again." Under it was an address, 1419 Alder Road. I went because grief had already hollowed out the sensible parts of me. I went because if there was a 1% chance Mara was trapped somewhere, I needed to know. I went because the last thing she had said in the car before her words fell apart was, "Don't leave me behind." Holloway House sat at the end of Alder Road behind a rusted iron fence. The building looked smaller than in the old photos. The columns were cracked. Vines crossed the boarded windows. A sign hung crooked near the driveway, so faded I could only read the last word. Home. My phone battery was at 6%. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of candle wax, mildew, and something sweet that had spoiled long ago. My flashlight moved over peeling wallpaper and a reception desk with a bell still sitting on it. A narrow hallway led to a viewing room. That was where the dinner waited. A table had been set in the center of the room, under a chandelier dripping with cobwebs. 2 plates, 2 glasses of red wine, tall white candles burning without melting. In front of one chair sat a folded cream sweater. In front of the other was a black place card. Daniel Harrow. A woman spoke from the dark doorway behind the table. "You came thin." It was Mara's voice. I couldn't see her face, only the outline of her body in that sweater. Her hair tucked behind one ear. "Mara," I said. She stepped closer. The candles bent toward her, flames leaning sideways. Her face was almost right. That was the worst part. Not rotten, not skeletal. Almost right. Like someone had built my wife from memory and gotten impatient around the eyes. She smiled with Mara's mouth. "You kept my ring." I reached for the chain around my neck. Her gaze followed it hungrily. From somewhere beneath the floor came a scraping sound. Wood on dirt. Then another. She held out her hand. "Put it on me." I backed away. Her smile stayed. "Danny, Don't make me ask twice. The floorboards behind the table groaned upward. A rectangular outline appeared, hidden under an old rug. A trapdoor. It lifted from below. Cold air spilled into the room. I saw stairs. Wet brick. Candlelight flickering in a basement. And at the bottom, through the thin gray dark, an open grave. Not a symbol. Not a vision. A real grave, dug into the dirt floor under the funeral home, with my wife's coffin lid propped open beside it. Something inside the coffin shifted under a sheet. The woman in the cream sweater said, "They gave me a way back. You only have to choose me." That was when I understood. It wasn't asking for love. It was asking for permission. I ripped the chain from my neck and threw the ring into the candle flames. The woman stopped smiling. Every candle went black at once. The room filled with movement. Hands brushed my jacket. Fingernails tapped the table. Chairs scraped backward, though no one sat in them. From the basement, Mara's voice began screaming my name, but it wasn't alone. Other voices were under it, men and women speaking in soft dating app phrases. "I understand you. I miss what you miss. Bring what you kept." I ran. The hallway stretched wrong. Doors opened onto rooms with covered mirrors, stacked coffins, shelves of old purses and watches, and framed photographs turned face down. My flashlight died near the reception desk. I found the front door by following the streetlight leaking through the cracks. Something grabbed my wrist as I reached the porch. A hand, cold and narrow. I looked back. For one clean second, I saw Mara. Not the almost right woman. My Mara. Pale, frightened, her eyes full of apology. She held my wrist, but not to pull me back, to push me out. "Don't answer again," she whispered. Then the door slammed between us. I woke in the grass outside the fence at sunrise. My phone was dead. My neck was bleeding where the chain had snapped. The ring was gone. Police found no table inside Holloway House. No candles. No trapdoor. They said teenagers had probably staged something, though they couldn't explain why there was fresh cemetery dirt in the cuffs of my jeans. At St. Agnes, Mara's grave had been disturbed. Not fully dug up, but enough that the top layer of soil had been turned over in the night. Mr. Voss refused to look at me when I asked what happened. "Some doors need two sides to open," he said. That was all. I got a new phone. Changed numbers. Sold the house on Bracken Street. Moved 3 towns over into a second-floor apartment with no yard, no basement, and no dating apps. For a while I slept. Last night, I came home from work and found a padded envelope on my kitchen counter. No stamp. No address. Inside was Mara's wedding ring, clean and warm. My new phone lit up beside it. Kindred had installed itself again. One match was waiting. The profile had no picture. Just a name. Mara. And the first message said, "This time we're white." Story 6. The wet wedding ring on my nightstand still smells like lake mud, even though the sheriff photographed it on a dead man's hand. I keep it in a coffee mug now, under the sink, wrapped in 2 paper towels and a grocery receipt from a gas station outside Wicklow County. I don't touch it. I don't show it to anyone. I only look at it when I hear water moving in the pipes after midnight, because that's when the ring starts tapping against the ceramic. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Like someone knocking from the bottom of a boat. My name is Travis Bell. I'm 38, and until last fall I lived outside Corbin, Kentucky, where I worked repairing small engines in a cinderblock shop behind my house. Lawn mowers, boat motors, chainsaws, anything with a pull cord and bad timing. People knew me as the guy who could fix a flooded carburetor and the guy who never stopped talking about catfish. Not normal catfish. One catfish. The old men at Barlow's Bait called it the Deacon. They said it lived somewhere in Blackwater Sink, a long, narrow lake hidden beyond the county road and a mile of flooded timber. They said it was older than the church bell in town, wider than a rain barrel, pale as candle wax, and smart enough to take bait without touching the hook. Most people told the story laughing. I didn't. I needed something to chase. My wife, Mara, had been gone 9 months by then. Not dead officially. Missing. She left after an argument so ordinary it embarrassed me to repeat it. Bills, my drinking, the shop failing, me spending too many nights on the river instead of at home. She drove away in her blue Camry during a storm, and the next morning they found the car abandoned near County Road 16, half a mile from Blackwater Sink. Her phone was on the passenger seat. Her shoes were in the floorboard. No blood, no note, no footprints the rain hadn't erased. People were kind for the first month. After that, kindness started sounding like suspicion. The wedding ring mattered because I still wore mine. White gold, scratched across the bottom from engine work, engraved inside with MB6 to 18. Mara had picked it because it was plain. A man should have to work hard to ruin something simple, she'd said. I was doing a pretty good job. The first message came on a Tuesday night while I was cleaning spark plugs at the kitchen table. Unknown number. You want the deacon? I stared at the screen with black grease under my nails and the radio playing weather alerts in the window. I typed, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I know where it sleeps. I should have deleted it. Instead, I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat down. Nobody outside Corbin cared about that fish. Nobody sane cared as much as I did. I asked how she got my number. The reply came fast. "Your wife gave it to me." I stood there long enough for the radio to switch from weather to gospel without me noticing. Then I called the number. It rang once and disconnected. I sent, "Do you know Mara?" The answer took 4 minutes. She was quiet when she saw the lake. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had explained it away. Somebody in town was messing with me. Maybe one of the guys from Barlow's. Maybe somebody who believed I'd done something to Mara and thought this was justice. Small towns don't need proof to build a story. They just need a gap. The next message arrived at 6:12 a.m. "Bring chicken liver, 6-ounce sinkers, and the ring." I looked down at my left hand. My ring had left a permanent pale groove on my finger. I had taken it off only once since Mara vanished, during a carburetor rebuild when it snagged on a spring. I remembered the naked look of my hand. I hated it. I typed, "No." The reply was immediate. Then fish blind. At noon, I drove to Barlow's Bait. The place sat beside a two-lane road, all corrugated metal and hand-painted signs. Minnows. Ice. Night crawlers. No refunds. Inside, the air smelled like damp cardboard, tobacco, and the sharp ammonia stink of bait tanks. Barlow himself was behind the counter, a heavy old man with cloudy blue eyes and a habit of sucking his teeth before saying anything useful. I bought hooks, sinkers, and a tub of chicken liver. He watched me place everything on the counter. "Blackwater?" he asked. I didn't answer. He put one thick finger on the chicken liver. "Don't go after dark." I gave him a tired smile. "Fish don't care what time it is. That one does." I looked up. The store had gone quiet except for the bait tank pump. Barlow's eyes moved to my wedding ring. "You get a message?" he asked. I didn't like how calm he sounded. "From who?" He sucked his teeth. "Women don't call from that lake unless something wants company." I asked what that meant. He shook his head and bagged my bait. "Your wife wasn't the first to leave a car on 16. That was the second clue, though I didn't understand it yet. At home, I searched old county records until my eyes burned. Missing persons, drownings, accidents, Blackwater Sink, County Road 16. There were more than I expected. A boy named Caleb Price disappeared in 1998 after sneaking out to fish with his uncle's pole. His bike was found near the southern boat ramp, both tires flat. A schoolteacher, Doreen Ash, vanished in 2007 after calling her sister from a pull-off near the lake. Her last words, according to one article, were, "There's a woman by the trees." A retired preacher named Ellis Vaught disappeared in 2014. His truck was found with the driver's door open, headlights shining into the water until the battery died. And then Mara. For disappearances, all tied to the same road, the same black lake, the same kind of unfinished ending. At 8:43 p.m., my phone buzzed again. North Bank, Old Baptism Dock, midnight. A second message followed. Do not bring a light for the water. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I did what grief teaches you to do. I made a terrible decision and called it hope. Blackwater Sink wasn't on most maps. The road turned to gravel, then mud, then 2 ruts through pine and sycamore. My truck crawled under branches that scraped the roof like fingernails. At 11:38 p.m., I parked near a collapsed sign covered in moss. The lake made no sound. That was the part one remember most. No frogs, no insects, no water lapping against the bank. Just a flat black sheet under a cloudy sky, swallowing the beam of my headlamp before it reached halfway across. The old baptism dock stood crooked on the north shore, half rotten, with 2 rusted rails leading into the water. White paint peeled from the boards in long strips. Someone had carved names into the railing. Caleb, Doreen, Ellis, Mara. The last name looked fresh. The letters were cut deep, pale wood exposed beneath the gray surface. I touched the M with my thumb, and a sliver went under my nail. My phone buzzed. You found them. I turned around so fast my tackle box slid off the dock. No one stood on the bank. No one waited between the trees. Only my truck, the mud, and a line of cattails moving without wind. I texted, "Who are you?" The answer came after a minute. I was the first hook. Then a picture appeared. It showed a woman standing at the edge of Blackwater Sink in a white dress, hair plastered to her face, one hand raised as if telling the camera to stop. The photo was old, grainy, maybe from a disposable camera. Behind her was the baptism dock, newer then, freshly painted. There was no date, but in the lower corner, half visible in the mud, was a license plate. My father's truck. I knew it because of the dent above the left taillight. I had put it there when I was 14, backing into a feed trailer. My father died 3 years before Mara disappeared. Liver failure, mean to the end. He had fished Blackwater more than anyone I knew, and always refused to take me there. When I was a kid, he told me, "That lake keeps what gets named." I thought it was drunk nonsense. Now I stood on a dock with my wife's name carved into it, holding a photo that put my family at the water long before I knew the story. The next message came. He traded his silence. "You wear the price." I looked at my ring. A small bead of water had formed on the metal, though the night was dry. I should have left. I got as far as packing the chicken liver back into the cooler. Then I heard Mara's voice from the lake. "Trav." Not loud, not dramatic, just the way she used to call from the porch when I stayed too long in the shop. I turned. The black water remained smooth. "Trav, I'm tired." My feet moved before I gave them permission. I walked to the edge of the dock with my rod in one hand and the bait in the other. I told myself sound carries strangely over water. I told myself grief can make a man hear anything. Then something pale rolled beneath the surface. Big. Too big. The deacon, I thought. Even then, some stupid part of me still believed in the fish more than the warning. I baited the hook with chicken liver, added 2 sinkers, and cast toward the center of the lake. The line hissed out into darkness. The bait hit with no splash. It just vanished. For almost 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the line went tight. Not a tug, not a bite. Tight, as if I had hooked the bottom of the lake and the bottom had started moving away. The rod bent until the fiberglass groaned. I braced my boots against the boards and reeled. The drag screamed. The dock trembled under me. Something surfaced 50 feet out. A wide, pale curve broke the water and slid under again. The smell hit me a second later, mud, dead leaves, and meat left too long in summer heat. I reeled until my hands cramped. The line cut a red groove across my finger. My wedding ring pressed into the swollen skin so hard it hurt. Then the rod jerked forward and nearly pulled me in. I fell to one knee. From under the dock, a woman whispered, "He remembers you." The water below me opened. A hand came up. Not a fish's mouth. Not a branch. A human hand, bloated gray-white, fingers swollen around the hook like it had caught me back. The hook pierced through the palm, and the fingers gripped the line with awful strength. On the ring finger was my wedding ring. My left hand was bare. The pale groove remained, wet and raw, but the ring was gone. The hand rose higher, bringing an arm with it, then a shoulder, then the top of a head covered in black weeds. I scrambled backward, dragging the rod with me, unable to let go because the line had looped around my wrist. The thing in the water pulled once, gently, almost politely. My face hit the boards. Through the gap between planks, I saw eyes looking up from beneath the dock. Dozens of them, open in the water, waiting. A woman's voice spoke from my phone, lying near my knee. "You wanted what was under us." The line tightened again. Something in my wrist cracked. I grabbed the bait knife from my tackle box and sawed at the fishing line. It was braided, thick, slick with lake water. Each pull from below dragged me another inch toward the edge. A face broke the surface. Not Mara's. Not anyone's, exactly. It was made of swollen pieces, cheeks and lips and eyelids softened together, but the mouth moved with Mara's voice. "You came late." I cut through the line. The rod snapped away into the black water. My wrist came free. The hand sank with the hook still in it, my ring shining once before the lake closed over it. I ran. Behind me, the dock boards thudded one by one, like wet feet climbing out. I drove through the trees with the truck door half open, and my left wrist swelling against the steering wheel. Branches tore at the side mirrors. Mud sprayed the windshield. My phone rang over and over from the passenger floor. Unknown number, unknown number, unknown number. I didn't answer. At dawn, I reached the sheriff's office in Corbin. I told them enough to get 3 deputies and a rescue boat sent to Blackwater Sink. I left out the voices. I left out my father's truck in the old photo. I did not mention the eyes under the dock. They found no woman, no body, no giant catfish, but they did find the hand. It washed against the baptism rails just after sunrise, still curled around my hook. The sheriff said it had been in the water a long time, but not long enough to make sense. No arm attached, no clean cut, no bite marks. The ring was still on it. Mine, engraving and all. MB6 to 18. They asked how it got there. I told them I didn't know. That was the only honest answer I had. The hand was never identified. The lake was searched twice and then left alone because budgets are small and people prefer mysteries that stay quiet. I sold the shop. I moved to Lexington. I stopped fishing. I stopped wearing anything on my hands. For a while, I almost convinced myself the lake had finished with me. Then 2 nights ago, I woke to 3 taps from under the kitchen sink. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. The coffee mug was on the floor, though I kept it behind a bottle of dish soap. The paper towels were soaked black. The ring sat in the center of the tile. Inside the band, where Mara's initials used to be, there was a new engraving scratched deep into the metal. Not letters, coordinates. I typed them into my phone with shaking hands. They pointed to a small retention pond behind my apartment complex, less than 40 yards from my bedroom window. At midnight, something rolled under the water out there, pale and wide. And this morning, my wedding ring was back on my finger. Story 7. The desert boots stood upright on my apartment doormat at 6:12 in the morning, leaking black mud into the hallway carpet. They were laced tight. Military issue, tan suede, size 11. A strip of duct tape across the left heel had my name written on it in blue marker. Mara Voss. Not my online name. Not the nickname I used on dating sites. My real name, the one printed on my hospital ID badge, and the electric bill I kept forgetting to pay. I was 31 then, living in a second-floor apartment above a closed barber shop in Ashford, Ohio. I worked nights as a billing clerk at St. Agnes Medical Center, correcting insurance codes under fluorescent lights while other people slept. My mother had moved in with my aunt after her dementia got worse, and my marriage had ended so quietly that sometimes I wondered if it had counted as a marriage at all. Loneliness does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it is just eating toast over the sink at midnight because washing a plate feels like too much effort. That was the state I was in when I met Captain Elias Ward online. His profile photo showed him in desert camouflage, one knee on the ground beside a wall of sand-colored bricks. He had a careful smile, pale eyes, and a scar through one eyebrow. His messages were never sloppy. No weird spelling. No immediate asking for pictures. He remembered things. He asked about my mother. He said he liked that I worked nights because it made him feel less alone on his side of the world. He claimed he was stationed overseas, somewhere he could not name. He said his connection was unreliable. He sent photos in bursts, his boots by a cot, instant coffee in a metal cup, a sunrise over a row of armored vehicles. I had been warned about men like that. Everyone has. Fake soldiers, romance scams, men who call you beautiful and then need a wire transfer for customs fees or a frozen account. The embarrassing part is that I knew all of that before I sent the money. But Elias never asked at first. For nearly 3 months, he only talked. At 2:30 a.m., when the hospital halls smelled like bleach and burnt coffee, his messages would appear on my phone. "You still awake, Mara? Did your mother remember you today? Put your hand on the radiator. Pretend it is mine." That last one should have made me close the app. Instead, I sat in the records office with one palm against the warm metal heater and cried without making noise. When he finally asked for help, it was almost gentle. He said a private courier was holding his personal effects until a processing fee was paid. He was coming home in 2 weeks, he said. He wanted to send the things ahead. "I don't want to arrive empty-handed," he wrote. The amount was $600. Not small for me, but not impossible. I paid it from the savings account I had been pretending not to drain. 3 days later, the boots arrived. There was no shipping label, no box, no courier notice. Just the boots standing on the mat like someone had carefully placed them there and stepped away. At first, I thought it was a prank by one of the college kids on the 3rd floor. They got drunk on Thursdays and once taped a rubber rat to the elevator button. I took a picture, then nudged one boot with my toe. Mud slid from the sole onto the carpet. It smelled wrong. Not like Ohio mud. Not rainwater and dead leaves. It smelled swampy, briny, like a pond disturbed after years of sitting still. Inside the right boot was a folded note, damp but still readable. "Coming home piece by piece." I called the non-emergency police line. The officer who came was young and tired, and told me it was probably a delivery mistake or an ugly joke. He asked whether I had an ex-husband who might bother me. I said no. That was not exactly true. Derek could be cruel, but only in lazy ways. Late payments, passive-aggressive emails. He would never hunt down military boots and fill them with mud. The officer bagged the note but left the boots because, as he put it, they're not illegal to own. That night, I messaged Elias. "Did you send boots to my apartment?" He answered 12 minutes later. "Not yet. Not yet." I stared at those 2 words until my phone dimmed. Then another message came. "Don't open anything after dark." The next package came 2 days later, at 7:40 p.m., while freezing rain ticked against my windows. This one was wrapped in brown paper and twine, sitting on the small table in the lobby where delivery drivers left takeout orders. Mrs. Alvarez from apartment 1B was checking her mail. She was 80, wore purple slippers everywhere, and had a tiny white dog named Saint who hated every living person except her. Saint stood stiff beside the package, growling. "Not yours," Mrs. Alvarez said. "My name's on it." "I know," she said, and would not look at me. "That is why I said it." The paper was wet, though the lobby was dry. I carried it upstairs with my fingers pinched around the twine. My apartment felt smaller than usual. The radiator hissed in the living room. A half-finished mug of tea sat on the coffee table, a pale skin forming over the top. Inside the package were dog tags. 2 metal tags on a chain, darkened with old reddish-brown stains. The stamped name read, Ward Elias M. Below that was a number, then a blood type, then a religion. No preference. They were cold enough to hurt my palm. A voicemail began playing from my phone without anyone calling. Static first, then Elias's voice, low and close. "Mara, don't let him use my name." I dropped the tags. They struck the floor with a clean little clink. The voicemail timestamp said 7:41 p.m. The file length was 13 seconds. There was no caller ID. I called the police again. This time, the officer listened longer. He asked about the man online. He wrote down Elias's name. He told me carefully that military romance scams were common and that I should stop communicating with the account. Can you check if he's real? I asked. That's not exactly how it works. Someone sent me bloody dog tags. He looked at them on my kitchen counter and shifted his weight. Could be paint. It's not paint. He did not argue. He just told me not to touch them again. At work that night, I did what people tell you not to do. I searched Elias Ward. There were too many results at first. Military men, memorial pages, social media profiles that might have been old or fake. Then I added the scar. Then the rank. Then the city from one of his stories. And there he was. Captain Elias Michael Ward. Born 1984. Died 2018. 6 years before he messaged me. The obituary photo showed the same pale eyes, the same scar through one eyebrow. He had been killed in a training accident after returning from deployment. Buried at Cedar Grove Military Cemetery in Virginia. I sat in the hospital billing office with the computer screen glowing on my face, listening to the HVAC thump inside the walls. The article said he was survived by his mother, Donna Ward. There was a phone number attached to an old charity fundraiser. I copied it before I could think too hard. The woman who answered sounded like she had been awake for years. When I said Elias's name, she inhaled once and did not speak. "I'm sorry," I said. "Someone has been using his photos." "Are you alone?" she asked. The question was so immediate that I looked around the empty office. "Yes." "No," she said softly. "You are not." I almost hung up. She said, "Did he ask you to send money?" "Yes." "Did you invite him home?" "I didn't. I said I hoped he would come home safe." "That counts." The printer behind me clicked on by itself. One sheet came out. The office printer was not connected to my phone. I had not printed anything. I stood up slowly and pulled the paper from the tray. It was a shipping receipt. No sender. No tracking number. Just my address and a delivery date. Tomorrow. At the bottom, where the courier's signature should have been, someone had written in block letters. One more piece. Donna Ward was still on the phone. "Listen to me," she said. "When my son died, his dog tags were buried with him. We saw them on him. We put them under his collar because he hated the chain touching his neck." I looked at the stained tags sealed in a plastic hospital specimen bag beside my keyboard. I had brought them to work because I no longer wanted them in my apartment. Donna continued, her voice flatter now. "You need to leave before the phone arrives." "What phone?" "The cracked one." A monitor down the hall began beeping, even though that wing had been closed for renovations. Donna said, "He doesn't come through doors until he has a voice." The line went dead. I should have gone to a hotel. I should have driven to my aunt's house 2 towns over, woken her up, and said something insane enough that she would have let me sleep on the couch. But my mother's old wedding ring was in my apartment. I had taken it off her hand when she went into memory care because she kept leaving it in bathroom sinks. It was the only thing of hers I trusted myself to keep safe. And the thought of those boots standing near it, of something in my place touching her jewelry box, made me angry in a way fear could not quite smother. I drove home at 5:25 a.m. The sky was still black, and the freezing rain had turned the sidewalks into glass. My apartment building looked normal from the street. The barbershop sign was dark. The lobby light flickered the way it always did. Saint barked once behind Mrs. Alvarez's door, then went silent. The third package sat inside my apartment. Not outside. Inside. On my kitchen table. A cracked black phone lay on a square of brown paper. Its screen was shattered in a spiderweb pattern. Dried mud packed the charging port. A dog tag chain was looped around it like a leash. I had locked my door. The deadbolt was still thrown behind me. For several seconds, I did not move. The apartment smelled like wet canvas and pond water. My mother's ring box sat open on the counter. The ring was gone. The cracked phone lit up. A video began playing. Elias stood in a room I did not recognize. Bare bulb. Concrete wall. His face looked younger than in his photos, but his eyes were wrong. Not evil, just exhausted beyond ordinary human limits. He said, "Mara, if you hear me, do not answer when he knocks. He wears what we leave behind." Something off camera scraped across concrete. Elias turned his head. Then, in my own living room, someone knocked on the inside of my front door. 3 polite taps. I backed toward the kitchen drawer, where I kept the biggest knife I owned. The phone continued playing, but Elias was no longer speaking. There was breathing on the recording. Not his. Heavy and patient, with a wet catch at the end of each inhale. The knock came again. 3 taps. Then Elias's voice from the other side of the door said, "Mara, I'm home." Not through the phone, through the wood. I did not open it. I grabbed my keys, slipped on the ice outside my back window onto the fire escape, and climbed down in socks because my shoes were by the front door. The metal steps burned my feet with cold. Behind me, inside my apartment, the cracked phone started ringing. At street level, I ran to Mrs. Alvarez's door and pounded until she opened it with a rosary wrapped around one hand. She did not ask what happened. She only said, "You answered him, didn't you?" I stayed with her until the police arrived. They found my apartment empty. The package was gone. The boots were gone. The dog tags were gone from the hospital specimen bag, too. My mother's ring never turned up. The only evidence left was mud on my kitchen floor and a voicemail on my phone. It was Elias again. One sentence. "He knows your way in now." The police treated it as stalking, fraud, and breaking and entering. A detective told me the dead soldier's identity had been used in similar scams in 3 other states. 2 women had vanished. One was found wandering near a cemetery in Virginia, barefoot, carrying a phone that played a man crying in a language she did not understand. Donna Ward stopped answering my calls. I moved out of Ashford within a month. I changed my number. I quit Street Agnes and took a daytime job with a dental office in Columbus. I deleted every dating profile I had ever made. I stopped saying "come home safe" to anyone, even casually, even in movies under my breath. For almost a year, nothing followed me. Then last week, I came back from lunch and found a small padded envelope on my desk. No postage, no label. My coworkers swore no one had come in. Inside was my mother's wedding ring. It was threaded onto a dog tag chain. The tag was clean this time, polished bright enough to reflect my face. It did not have Elias Ward's name stamped into it anymore. It had mine. That night, at exactly 7:41, my dead phone rang from inside the locked drawer, where I keep it wrapped in a towel. I let it ring until it stopped. Then a message appeared on the cracked screen. "Thank you for holding my place." At 6:12 the next morning, the boots were back on my doormat. This time they were facing in.